Welcome, everybody, to this Trainwreck Sports Podcast, where we are not here to play school. We are here to talk football. Another season of college football, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host and my brother, Alex Micah, as we're here to break down another pew exactly. That I couldn't have said it better myself. Break down another college football season every single week. We are sponsored here by Outlet Liquor, your place to buy a case on college football Saturdays. Get there early in the morning, get ready to sit down on your ass for 16 hours, whatever it is going to be. 12 hours,
let's
15
see.
hours.
You start right away with college game day. That's like 3 hours.
Yep.
And then at least you might be right, 16 hours, because there's some game, those late Mountain West games, man, when stuff gets fun, stuff gets wild.
Yeah.
Not starting until at least 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night.
No more Pac-12 after dark. Mountain West after dark is what we'll have to settle for this year. We'll get into that.
We still kind of got like Pac-12 after dark, whatever.
A little bit.
Washington State, Oregon State are doing. I don't know.
A little bit.
Pac-2. Yeah.
Pac-2. I like that.
Yeah.
We'll be here all year long, sponsored by Outlet Liquor on George Irvin Boulevard in Depew. And we have an exciting college football season to get into here. The first ever 12-team playoff. And we're going to give our playoff predictions right here at the start in a second here, but we got to remember what we're here for.
The great Cardale Jones.
Shout out Cardale Jones, Buffalo Bills legend, honestly.
I know. I think is this a new pick? I feel like I don't remember this one. He's actually in action this time.
This is a new pick. Yeah. I got an action shot at Cardale.
New season,
Google figured it out. Got an action shot.
Is he the last quarterback for the Bills to wear 7?
Oh, that's a great question.
He
might be. Didn't Thad Lewis wear 7?
He might have, but was Thad Lewis?
I don't remember if he was after or before Cardale.
It's a bad time. It's a mix of quarterbacks.
But there's all this talk about practice squad this week. Practice squad legend Cardale Jones.
True. What about Davis Webb? He wears 7.
I think he wore 7.
He might have wore 7. He is the hero of that snow game. That's what I remember.
The Colts one.
Yes.
And what's his name? Who else is the hero? What is that guy's name? Yeah, Davis Webb also wore 7.
Shady, man.
Now, what's the guy's? Not Shady. Who's the one guy who's a receiver but also played quarterback? You remember who I'm talking about?
Kelvin Benjamin had a big catch in that game, I thought.
Is it Brad Smith or something like that? Some guy like that. There's a guy. Remember. He was on the Vikings too, and he also played for the Bills partially in that game. And I think he had a big pass late in the game too. Because they put him at quarterback so he could run around a little bit. I don't remember. But let's get into the important things. The 12-team playoff this year. Before we break down the 5 biggest games of the weekend, which there are a lot of big games this week, a lot of ranked teams in some big matchups to start off the season. We're going to give our 12-team playoff predictions. So I'll go first. I'll let you react to mine, and then we'll see yours. We have no idea what our predictions are right now. So that's fun. We're just gonna kind of roll with it and see what happens. So, putting them up on the screen right now, I've got the Georgia Bulldogs, the number 1 seed. Pretty self-explanatory. Oh, I gotta get this. You can't see my 12 seed here. Got the Georgia Bulldogs as the number 1 seed. The Ohio State Buckeyes as the number 2 seed. Miami Hurricanes as the number 3 seed, as one of the highest ranked conference champions. Have the Utah Utes winning the Big 12, taking the 4 seed. The other conference champion that we're going to put in there is Boise State, who you can see they're at 12, winning the Mountain West and getting in there as the Group of 5 school. They'll take on Texas in their first year in the SEC, who I think will split with Georgia this year. That's what I think will end up happening. Okay. I don't know how it's going to happen, but I think that's how it breaks out, and Georgia still gets the 1 seed.
All right.
Tennessee and Penn State in the 8-9. Penn State finally getting into a playoff here. Don't think they'll beat Ohio State, but think they can go 11-1 the rest of the way. Tennessee, Nico Mania is going to hit and go crazy. They probably lose to Georgia, maybe another game along there, but I think that they're good enough. It's also a belief that Ole Miss and Bama aren't going to make the cut here. So we can talk about that a little bit, depending on what yours looks like too. Okay. I think they'll still be good teams, but I think Tennessee will be better. That Tennessee offense is going to be electric with a quarterback not named Joe Milton. As I said, the Buckeyes got Kansas here at 7. I haven't seen Kansas in a lot of people's projections this year, but I believe in Lance Leipold. I believe in Jalen Daniels. I think they're going to be a really good Big 12 team this year. They could win the Big 12, honestly. I could see that happening, but I'm putting them at.
Okay,
you don't think so?
I don't. Well, no, if you, I mean, no, I think they're the fourth or fifth best team in the Big 12. I mean, so it's possible.
Okay, well, we'll see who you got in there later. Notre Dame gets in here because with that Florida State loss, their schedule's pretty easy after this Texas A&M game in week 1 that we'll talk about later on. Oregon, I think, will be in the Big Ten championship against Ohio State. I think they might lose. I think they might split with Ohio State.
So
I think that's how we'll get there.
Here's my thing about your picks, though. So if Oregon, Ohio State's Big Ten championship, wouldn't you think that Oregon? What seed is Oregon? What are they?
6.
Okay, they're the 6. Okay, it's hard to see it. Because I was gonna say I thought you had Penn State higher than them, and I'm like that doesn't make sense how they'd end up higher than them.
No, I think there'll be 3 1-loss teams, and that Penn State will be just the 3rd highest ranked out of them.
Okay,
slip down there.
Gotcha.
And Virginia Tech at 11, who's got a lot of hype, and I don't know what to do with the ACC because I don't like Florida State. I don't like Clemson that much this year, so I'm going with Miami and Virginia Tech.
The ACC is a bit of a mess, but I mean you'll see mine in a second.
Yeah, so let's go to your playoff predictions here. And I'm getting it up on our screen as we speak. Now, talk me through it here. What do you got?
Okay, so my 1 seed, I have Texas.
The Texas number 1 seed.
Number 1 seed, Texas Longhorns, coming into SEC hot. They're gonna cook.
Okay.
I just think I think Texas is the best team in the country, and I've thought that before the initial rankings came out. That's what I was sticking with. I can understand the case for Georgia, and we're going to get to see these two teams play each other at least once, probably twice
in Austin
the championship game. But I think Texas is the best team in the country. 2 is Ohio State.
Okay.
I think even though like I don't know, I'm not as high on them as other people. I just think that I think they just have the best path in the Big Ten, even with a tough schedule they have to go to Oregon. And they're at Penn State this year, but I'm not high on Penn State, and we're going to get to that in a second. 3, Utah.
Utes.
So I got them a little higher than you. I got them winning the Big 12. I think they would probably be favorites in the Pac-12 if that was still even a thing. They're just a well-built team. Cam
Rising, like 10th year.
Cam Rising, it's ridiculous how long he's been around. But, I mean, he did help them win back-to-back Pac-12 championships.
And if he didn't get hurt last year, I mean, they probably could have been contending with Oregon and Washington, too.
Yeah, to go for 3 straight. So, my 4 is someone you didn't even have in your playoff. I got Clemson at 4.
Okay.
And that's just because I think they're going to win a weak ACC, and they'll be the 4th highest seed. They might be 10-2 winning the ACC, but I think it's a weak ACC. 5, I got Bama.
Alabama.
Mm-hmm. And a big factor in this is because Texas and Bama do not play each other leading in. So I'll say to combine this with my 6 is Georgia.
Okay.
And I have that solely as because it's going to be Bama Texas SEC championship game.
Okay.
Is what I'm picturing in my head.
Seeing SEC teams as the 2 highest ranked at larges makes a lot of sense.
That's also my thought process too. I was like, with Bama Georgia 5 or 6 doesn't really matter, but they're both getting in, both hosting playoff games. 7 is Oregon.
Yep. Makes sense.
I mean, close to what you had. Same general idea. Going to be the 2nd best team in the Big Ten, most likely. Even though they had a lot of turnover, so it's interesting. I'm interested to see what's going to happen with Oregon this year because a lot of these teams that we're going to be looking at a lot of turnover.
A lot of Dylan Gabriel Heisman hype. A lot of hype.
Yeah, I don't really know that. I don't get it. I mean, I watched this dude play for a while, but
I don't know if I agree either. But it's happening.
Also, a guy who's been in college football for seemingly forever.
Way too long.
My 8 is Miami.
All right, there we go. So we both got the Canes in there. It's got to happen. Mario Cristobal is too good of a coach, and they got too much talent.
We are talking about their game against Florida this week, so I'll save a piece about the Canes and about how they have been the last few years.
Okay.
9, I put Penn State in.
All right.
I don't know. I've voiced this obviously the last few months about Penn State. I don't know how I feel about them. I'm very, very wary about them. I'm sure I'm going to flip-flop over that. We'll see what happens after, at like 3:00 tomorrow. If they completely dismantle West Virginia, then maybe my opinion will change. But for now, I think most people have them making the playoff around this spot as the 3rd best team in the Big Ten. Probably going 10-2 is what most people have them. So we'll see. I think I said 9-3 is what I think they'll be. And I think a lot of teams this in the playoff are going to be multiple losses. I don't think we're getting a lot of undefeated teams going forward with the way the playoff is and the way conferences are so strong now. But my 10 is Oklahoma State.
Oh,
who I think is going to be the runner-up in the Big 12.
Are you worried about tomorrow against South Dakota State at all? That's not a game we have on our thing, but
it's not. I thought about that. We should talk about that. It's gonna be close, but I mean, Gundy's Gundy. You know, he can figure it out, especially now where it's, quote unquote weaker Big 12 with Texas, Oklahoma leaving. And he's primed though to be like, no, I can win this thing. He's like, everyone's picking Utah to win. You know, I think they are the sleeper to win. It's Utah and them. I think is the championship.
Alan Bowman also been there for about 10 years. So,
well, yeah, I mean Texas Tech first, and then coming in. 11. This is one. Just why not? This is you had Boise State. I got Memphis.
Hey, Memphis. I was between Memphis and Boise, so
AAC. Historically, that's been the now Power 4, but non-Power 5 conference that had a shot at making the playoff before. We had UCF, where there was the argument for them, and then Cincinnati actually making. So we'll go with Memphis. And then 12, I put Notre Dame.
Yep.
Who, I mean,
the schedule is just too favorable, and the way Florida State looked, that was one of their tougher games. So as long as they get past USC, they can probably afford to slip up to A&M and go 11-1, and we'll make this field.
Yeah. And so I think they'll be. I don't know. They're. We're going to talk about them in a second. That's an interesting year, interesting quarterback situation. So,
all right. Well, do you, out of your 12, do you have a national championship?
Ooh, do I have a national championship?
Yeah. Don't have to go all the way through, but
I needed to see that visual again.
Okay. Let me get it up for you.
Let me see. I have it listed here. I got to see it as a bracket, actually.
I will start, and I'm just saying it's Georgia and Ohio State. I think that it's going to be pretty chalk. Is this yours?
No, that's yours.
Mine.
Okay, so Georgia, Ohio State. Okay.
Georgia, Ohio State out of this. I think the Final Four ends up Ohio State, Oregon, Georgia, Texas. Pretty chalky, but feels like the 4 best teams in the country. I feel like that's what's going to happen with the playoff is we're going to get a lot of excitement in the early round games, and then the 4 best teams are still going to be the 4 best teams. All right, here you go.
Would it be crazy to? I'm gonna go Georgia, Texas.
All right.
I think we're getting just an all SEC national championship.
SEC fans are rejoicing around the country here.
Well, I know maybe some might not be. They're really like, oh fuck Texas. They're joining their conference and making it to the national championship.
That's true. All right. Well, that's our playoff predictions. Let's get into the games going on today. As we have a great slate, honestly, a great slate of games going into this week for week 1. Like sometimes you get a week 1 slate, you have 1 to 2 good games. I think our 5 that we have are pretty great, including one on Sunday, which will be a fun game to watch. Let's start with the number 1 team in the nation, the Georgia Bulldogs, facing the Clemson Tigers in Atlanta, which is basically a home game for Georgia, but Clemson's
essentially a home game. How far away is Athens from Atlanta? Like 10 miles even?
Clemson's pretty close too, though. So it's like there will be a good – I bet you it's like 65-35 Georgia fans. But there will be a good Clemson contingent in the what's it called now? The Mercedes-Benz Stadium, I guess.
It's Mercedes-Benz Stadium, yeah.
It throws me off that that's Mercedes-Benz now and not the Superdome. Let's see how far – it's only a 2-hour drive from Clemson to Atlanta. That's kind of crazy. So it'll be a raucous atmosphere there. What are you thinking for this week 1 matchup in Atlanta here? Georgia, presumptive national title contender, SEC favorite. We both just said they're in the national championship game.
If you want to look at it as the team overall, presumptive national champion. But I think you got to look at presumptive, one of the Heisman favorites in Carson Beck, who came in last year after following in Stetson Bennett's footsteps. We didn't really see too much of him, just in like blowout games or whatever, and played awesome last year. And was second team All SEC, only behind Jayden Daniels, who won the Heisman. He looks like he's poised. He's got a great arm. I mean, I think he's ready to lead this team. That's who I think you got to look at. And the other side of that coin, looking at Clemson's quarterback, Cade Klubnik, who was highly touted prospect, 5-star, came in his freshman year and helped them win the ACC. Didn't play the whole year, but took over for DJU. Helped win the ACC. Did not play good in the Orange Bowl at all, but freshman. We got to take it up to him. Oh, it's not a big deal. And then last year was kind of just like a middling quarterback, sophomore year. Didn't do too much. So that's going to be the real story of this game, I think, is which quarterback is going to show up in this big moment. And I put down in our document, we were talking about it, the last time these two teams played was in 2021, and Georgia won 10-3. So, I mean, it was not a quarterback battle at all. I'm hoping for the opposite this year, where we're going to see a show, actually, and see these guys go off, and see if Cade is legit like he's supposed to be.
Yeah, I think we'll get some more fireworks this year in this game. But that 11.5 spread, I would hammer Georgia on that, honestly. I think that Clemson, the biggest question going into the year for Clemson and why I don't have them in my playoff is Dabo's reluctance to use the portal and use those things to his advantage. Can he keep up with the teams like Georgia? Like, remember, it's not far off where Clemson was recruiting with the top tier of the country, with Georgia, with Ohio State, with Alabama. And there's still a great recruiting team. They're still getting top 10 classes, but the level is, there's just if you look at the blue chip ratio, there's just a difference. Like, there's just a drop off when you get past a couple, like basically Georgia and Ohio State at this point. And Clemson's in that middle, in that second tier with like a Penn State, with those types of teams in the country. Where can they keep up in a game like this? Now, if they win this game, they might shoot up to like number 2 in the country. Like, I wouldn't be surprised to see that. And Klubnik, I feel like I still like Cade Klubnik. Still think he has all the tools to be a good quarterback. I think that it's the talent across the board, and that offense, the scheme last year, nothing clicked last year at all for this team offensively. Can they figure it out? It's not a good team to start off, try to figure it out against at all. But I'm just interested to see how, like, the Clemson storyline is more interesting to me than Georgia here, because I think Georgia, as you said, Carson Beck might win the Heisman. He might be the best quarterback in the country. I don't think that that's hyperbole at all.
Yeah. Being talked about as a first-round quarterback and like either like the first or second taken off the board.
Yeah, exactly. So. Shedeur last night didn't show you presumptive number 1 pick.
My thing with Shedeur is like, we knew he was crazy talented, and I was on this podcast last year. I said he's going to be my hot take was he's going to be a better NFL player than his dad, which is a wild take to say.
That is a wild take.
He was there for like 2 weeks, but I mean, we knew he was crazy talented, and this Colorado team. We're gonna talk about Colorado. We're talking about UGA and Clemson. They did the same thing last year. They had four different guys last year against TCU had 100-yard receivers, and what did they do this week? They had 2 or 3 different guys who were 100-yard receivers. They went off crazy, and they barely escaped against North Dakota State. And you and me both respect North Dakota State as a team.
I did. I bet them plus 10.5 yesterday. Was very happy with that game.
Covered. So but. I don't know. I think the other shoe can still drop Shedeur. I think he's going to fall off. I think if you got to look at it as the number 1 overall pick, I truly believe I could see something happening with like Eli Manning's situation. Wherever he gets drafted to, he's just like, I'm not going there.
I know. He said he's the Giants.
The Giants would never. There's for a million other reasons would never want to take Shedeur because of all the stuff with Deion back at his draft. Even with that, but I mean. I don't know. I think there's a lot of other baggage going with him that would like knock him for not even because he is crazy talented, but the baggage issues I think would change that.
That's fair. Beck's probably the safer pick, and we'll see how good Carson Beck is this year. Like fully, like this is fully his team this year, and he was really good last year too. Like especially towards the end of the season, he was really picking it up. But it feels like it's going to be the Carson Beck show, and they're going to have a pretty explosive offense coming.
It is, and I think it's going to be much more of a passing game too. I mean, they lost their 2 top rushers last year. Yeah. So you got to think they're going to rely more on his arm than on the ground game this year.
Yeah, for sure. What's your score prediction here?
Score prediction? I'll go. See, I think you're going with you're hammering that 11.5. I think they're going to win by like 10. So I would go. Actually, I think Clemson will cover, but it's probably going to be like 31-21.
31-21? Okay. I'm saying 27-13. That's where I'm settling with that game. But yeah, it'll be close. I think it'll be close to this spread. But Georgia will handle it in a fun atmosphere, fun opener at noon to start. We're going to jump to the late game, the night game. Notre Dame traveling to Kyle Field. Underdogs is the number 7 team in the country to take on Texas A&M, ABC at 7:30 Eastern. You have it in
College
College Game Day. Should it be here? I think just because it's the night game and because it's on, they like going to a campus rather than a neutral site. It makes sense.
Which is true. That's definitely why UGA comes and doesn't get the nod here.
And it's weird with the noon games too, because then they like switch the sets and they get away from the fans and everything like that. Yeah. So
it's interesting. It'll be. I mean, it probably is the best pick to do. And I didn't even think about this until I started looking at the game. That it's Riley Leonard, who transferred from Duke, is the new quarterback at Notre Dame, and who is the new head coach at Texas A&M? His coach, Mike Elko, who left Duke to go to Texas A&M.
Yeah, that's bizarre.
That's honestly right there. Even if these teams weren't ranked, I think that's a big enough story anyways. That's a fun week one story to look at. And this is two programs you want to look at too, who have like trying to been pushing that envelope to be like a top contender in college football the last few years. And, Notre Dame made the playoff in 2020, but that's a weird season where they made the playoff. And Texas A&M has kind of always been that like third or fourth best team in the SEC. They can't break that level. So that's why it's two interesting programs at the same level who can recruit really well, but just can't get into that next like epsilon of college football right now.
Yeah. And it's interesting with A&M because it was Jimbo, who was obviously a notorious, like great recruiter for years and years, but like just couldn't modernize his offense or his scheme or anything. And that was the biggest issue is like, was it so bland? Like you guys aren't, no movement with your offense, no a lot of things like that. So bringing Elko in, Duke had some great offenses the last couple of years when they could have the talent. And Riley Leonard was a good quarterback. And you'd think that matchup that you're talking about there would favor Elko knowing Leonard's weaknesses rather than Leonard knowing what Elko is going to want to do. So that is a really interesting subplot. I hadn't even thought about that going into it. How do you feel about Riley Leonard taking over at Notre Dame? They had success with Sam Hartman last year. They were a really good team. Do you think?
I think he's a solid. I think he's a solid quarterback. He's pretty mobile. He can run. I think this is obviously there's gonna be more weapons around him at Notre Dame than there were at Duke, which I think will benefit him too. It's kind of the same thing like Sam Hartman. Like Sam Hartman was like a good quarterback at Wake Forest. Like pretty solid, like put up a lot of numbers or whatever, but it was Wake Forest. They never did anything big. Yeah. Then this first 5 weeks of the season last year at Notre Dame, and Sam Hartman was like, this guy's gonna win the Heisman. Like he's the greatest quarterback of all time, and he was beat up on like Navy and stuff. So it wasn't like really that like it mattered. But I mean I wouldn't be surprised if like Riley Leonard leads them to 10 wins, 11 wins. Their schedule isn't that hard in general, and I think he is a good quarterback, and he's going to benefit from playing in like the best system he's ever played in.
Yeah, I could see that too.
And it's the same way that Sam Hartman did. He benefited from being in that system.
For sure, Hartman. I like the way that they're going about it with hitting the transfer portal, getting those guys because they're going to be able to get a lot of guys in the portal every year at Notre Dame. That especially if they're going to spend.
Which is interesting though. The last two quarterbacks they've gone with have been transfer guys. So I don't know. I mean, who's the heir apparent to Riley Leonard, or is they're just going to keep on shopping in the portal until they find the right guy in recruiting class? It's interesting to see.
It is. How do you feel about A&M going into the year in the SEC, adding Texas, adding Oklahoma?
I mean, I think as we were, like I said, they were trying to, they were like the third or fourth best team, maybe fifth best team some years in the SEC. I think they automatically get pushed down to like the back half.
Yeah.
I think, Georgia, Bama, Ole Miss this year, Texas, Oklahoma, not as much. But like even Tennessee, Oklahoma, I mean, that's 6 teams right there that I think are all better than Texas A&M. And I think, I mean, it's reflected in the rankings, obviously, which it's preseason rankings, so you don't know what's going to happen with those. But I think right off the bat, all those teams are like worlds better than Texas A&M.
Yeah.
And they're going to, that's the thing, too. It's like where A&M might have been able to steal some recruits from Texas because maybe it's guys who wanted to play in the SEC. Well, there goes your one chip that you had in your favor.
Yeah, that's true. I know the recruiting is going to be interesting there with Oklahoma and Texas in there.
Well, I mean, we've already seen it. This August, there's been 3 5-stars who have committed to Texas. The number 3 and number 4 wide receiver in the country, and the number 1, I think it was safety. All 5-stars have committed to Texas. I mean, they're on a tear.
Different world now.
Sark knows how to recruit. That's part of it too.
Yeah, and they got that NIL money in Austin. That's for sure.
Do.
All right, so what do you got here for this game? What's your prediction?
I think it's gonna be pretty close. I think it's gonna honestly what's gonna happen is Texas A&M is gonna try to like kind of control the ball for the most part. This game, I think it's gonna stay with like right at that -3. I think I could see it like 20-17. And I'm gonna go with Notre Dame though.
We're right along the same idea because I have 24-21 Notre Dame. I think it's a 3-point game. I think it's close, but Notre Dame's a better team, and then they'll win this game. And then they're set up to make a run, man. Notre Dame's going to be highly ranked, I think, all year.
Probably. One of the like possibly a false team, like just being in the top 10 all year, beating up on trash performance. But you know, we'll see.
It's true, but we'll see what happens with them. Like I could see them rolling, honestly, through the year. They don't have a tough schedule. USC will probably be the next toughest game later on, depending on if Florida State can kind of figure out their troubles. But I'm not too bullish on that from that thing. And so we'll see what happens with this. Let's go to Florida, where a big matchup in the state of Florida. Mm-hmm. The Miami Hurricanes traveling to Gainesville to take on the Florida Gators in a whiteout at Florida, where Miami will be in their all-white uniforms and probably a lot of Miami fans in the crowd.
Oh, for sure.
In Gainesville, I can imagine.
It's they rival with rivalry, but separate conferences, so don't always play each other. First time they played each other since 2019, which was an awesome game back in 2019. Where
that was towards the end of the year, wasn't it? Too?
No, that was week 1
of the year. Okay,
it was a week 1 game. Who was the 2019 Florida quarterback? Who was it? Do you know?
Jeff Driscoll?
No, Jeff Driscoll.
I don't know.
Felipe Franks.
Okay.
Felipe Franks. I remember this vividly. Scores the game-winning touchdown. They win 24-20. What does he do? Takes the ball, punts it into the crowd.
That's right.
That was what I remember. But series is in Miami's favor, 29-27. So crazy close. Obviously, pretty bitter rivalry when you throw Florida State in there too. All three of those teams, if they play in the same year, they compete for the Governor's Cup or Governor's Trophy. All these state schools have those things. It's interesting. Can Florida make a comeback this season, and can Miami make a comeback this season? Miami hasn't had a 10-win season since 2017. Mario Cristobal is coming into his 3rd year. He hasn't really been close to a 10-win season at all.
Cam Ward.
He's the best quarterback that he's had. He's better than Tyler Van Dyke.
100% better than
for sure. Dyke. He's the best quarterback that Cristobal's had at Miami.
He might be the best quarterback in the ACC. Honestly,
it's possible.
Yeah,
it's interesting. It's going to be interesting. Like, I obviously have Miami taking at least staying as a relevant team. I just think like more around, like they're well built. We're talking about someone who can recruit really well, and the state of Miami going back to like Howard Schellenbecker back in the 80s, the state of Miami and getting their recruiting. Cristobal knows what he's doing, and Miami is always getting these good players. Now, can he actually just develop them and get them to win? That's another thing. But no, I'll just jump in. I got Miami winning this game against Florida. I think 2.5 is generous to Florida, but it is a rivalry, so I understand.
Yeah, I think Miami wins this game by 10 at least. Yeah, I'd say like 30 to 17, 30 to 21, something like that.
I could see that. Let's see. Cam Ward going to throw 3 touchdown passes.
Yeah. I love Cam Ward. I think that's a game changer for Miami this year to have a guy like that at quarterback with the talent around him.
Van Dyke is lit it up at anywhere he's gone,
Yeah.
Incarnate Ward, and then going to Washington State and now to Miami. So,
big opportunity for him. It'll be a fun atmosphere in the swamp, but I do think, and you have a note here too about Florida with the hardest schedule in college football.
Yes, they do.
Their last 5 weeks of the schedule: Georgia in the cocktail party,
and so neutral site game, and they got that going for them at least.
Yep, at Texas, hosting LSU, hosting Ole Miss, and then at Florida State. That's their last 5 games.
That Florida State game might not be that big a deal anymore.
Exactly. Well, both those teams could be like 6-5. That's what I imagine.
Yeah. That might be 2 teams. Who knows? They might be fighting for bowl eligibility. Honestly, that's what the biggest story in that game is. They might be like 5-6 or something.
Feels more like that than anything else. That's for sure. That's for sure. But it'll be interesting. We'll see what we'll see what happens there with Miami and Florida. Fun to have that rivalry renewed. As you said, it's super close. It'll be an electric atmosphere. That's easily the best 3:30 game. Not a great mid-afternoon slate. I think I think that's when Nebraska and UTEP are on. So I'll be interested to see Dylan Raiola during that time.
Yeah,
Texas plays Colorado State.
Also, I mean, Ohio State, Akron. So you're not really seeing much against an opponent, but your first time you're going to see Will Howard.
That's true.
In Ohio State. So
and
Jeremiah Smith.
And Jeremiah Smith.
Could
be the best.
Well, that's interesting enough. Did you see how much Ohio State is favored by though in that game?
Like 49.5 or something.
Yeah, 48.5.
Yeah.
7.
I think they'll clear it. Get the zips out of here. Probably. See you later, guys. But that'll be an interesting 3:30 slate. We're going back to noon though, as the Penn State Nittany Lions travel to Morgantown to take on West Virginia. This is a home and home. Last year it was a night game at Penn State where Penn State took the victory. Morgantown, they canceled classes today.
Yeah.
Because traffic was already too crazy. The Pat McAfee show was lit. It looked like a great time there. So it's going to be a raucous atmosphere. As you mentioned before we got on here, this number keeps going down. I think it started at 9.5 earlier.
I think it might have been up to 10 at one point.
Yeah.
And now it's gone down to 7.5.
We'll see if it gets down. If it gets down to under a touchdown, I will take Penn State and take that touchdown point. That a little teaser to what I think will happen in this game. But I think it's going to be closer than you do. I'm pretty sure.
I told you I had a dream about this game where it was 59-56 and Penn State lost.
Now that would be insane if this game ends up 59.
It was also the number they were playing like Pitt and West Virginia. It was really weird, so it didn't make a lot of sense. But no, I don't know. I mean, I talked about this game. It's really going to come down to more so how like Penn State's defense was one of the top 3 in the country last year. You could argue some metrics they were the number one defense in the country. New defensive coordinator with Tom Allen coming in from Indiana after why can't I think of his name? Guy he's coaching
Manny Diaz.
Yes, Manny Diaz.
Yeah.
I coach at Duke now. Left and it was a great defense coordinator the last few years for Penn State. It's going to be interesting to see if they can keep up that level of defense against what is a really solid offense, actually, a really good rushing attack offense that West Virginia has. Garrett Green should have a spy on him at all times because he can take off. They have a really good offensive line. They're having 3 returning starters. 2 returning starters at their position, left tackle and left guard, and a third player who's going to be the new center after Zach Frazier got drafted to the Steelers, who was a starter at right guard. So 3 different guys who have double-digit starts from last year and who were all either all Big 12 recognized or honorable mentions. So it's going to be interesting. It's really the story about it's the defense against West Virginia's offense.
Yeah, that's a great point. The thing with that, I feel confident in Penn State's defense more than their offense. And Penn State, new offensive coordinator as well. Guy from Kansas, can't remember his name always.
Kotelnicki?
Kotelnicki, yeah. Something crazy like that. So they've had the problem with Penn State's had a lot of offensive coordinators over James Franklin's tenure. Obviously, Joe Moorhead was very successful, got a head coaching job out of it, but they've had some struggles with the last couple choices. This is a guy who's been, if you saw Kansas offense last year, they were electric. And they need to help.
One of, if not the most explosive offense in the country. And meanwhile, Penn State was one of, if not the least explosive team in the country.
Yes. And the thing about Penn State's offense this year is we know the running game will be strong with Singleton and Allen back. But can Allaire, does Allaire have enough weapons on the outside, the guys that can go get the ball for him? Or was it a scheme issue that they weren't getting these guys open? Because it feels like they still have the talent, or they have at least enough talent, but those guys were not getting open at all this year. Julian Fleming coming over from Ohio State, expected to be one of the number 1 targets. Harrison Wallace is going to be healthy. He had a big game last year against West Virginia, and then was hurt.
He did. That was, his best game last year was 7 catches, 73 yards, and then he got hurt the next game and was, missed a month and a half of the season. And it never was the same again after that.
Never the same after that. So there's a lot of unknowns about this Penn State offense that we're going to see, and it's a tough test. But as you mentioned in our doc here, West Virginia's defense is not strong. This could be a game where there are fireworks. It could be a team getting in the 30s or 40s. So what is your prediction for the Nittany Lions in West Virginia? What a fun game too. Like these are between this and like the 3 games we just talked about. I mean, Georgia and Clemson's fun in Atlanta with the neutral site, but I love the home and home series that these teams do. And like the 3 games that we just talked about, Notre Dame and Kyle Field will be an awesome sight to see. Miami and Florida renewing a rivalry, and renewing this rivalry too. Penn State and West Virginia.
Yeah.
But what do you got?
I think it's going to be Penn State 35, West Virginia 24.
Okay. I like that.
It's close. They're going to score. West Virginia score more than they did last year because I think they believe the score was 35-14 last year. So they're getting up on them a little bit. It'll be interesting. I don't know. It'll be interesting.
Do you know
I'm not nervous like other Penn State fans are, where they're like, "Oh, I don't know. I think we're going to lose this game." I think they're going to win, but it is interesting to me that it's like so much has dropped down or like on their covering. I'm like, this is like Penn State is really a clearly better team than West Virginia, but there's the betting odds. If maybe what the hell's going on? What does Vegas know that I don't?
Do you know what the all-time series is?
Oh, how many games is it?
They've played 60 times. It's Penn State's 3rd highest number of meetings for a team.
I think isn't it like there's got to, is there a tie in there or no?
There's 2 ties. I'll give you
is it like 37, 21, and 2?
Even higher, 49, 9, and 2. The Nittany Lions lead the series. So historically, they're a dominant team. They had a win streak of 25 from 1959 to 1983. So yeah, the Penn State, it's the 3rd team. They played the 3rd most. Their first meeting was in 1904. They've only played Syracuse and Pitt more.
Well, Pitt makes sense. I mean, they have over 100 games against them.
They played Syracuse 71 times. That's a rivalry we need renewed.
It is coming up.
That's true. Yeah, you're right.
It's 25-26, I believe, is Syracuse home and home.
Look at Penn State. They're getting all these rivalries back.
Yeah. Going. It's just also it's funny though. They're hitting these teams at like low points though. So it's like,
well,
West Virginia's on the rise, you could say.
And Cuse could be decent this year too in the ACC.
It's possible.
You never know with them with Dino Babers. He's been doing a good job there, so we'll see what happens.
Probably one more thing I wanted to say about Penn State's offense.
Yeah.
Is I think Kaytron Allen has taken over the role as running back 1 over Nick Saban.
Oh.
I think
he's more.
You're going to see him starting that game. I think we're going to see him get, pun not intended, lion's share of targets.
I do think he's the more. I do think he's the more like well-rounded running back.
That is the belief from I've heard. It's the NFL like buzz about him already. Is that they believe Kaytron Allen is the more NFL ready product.
Kaytron Allen is like. He might not be this good, but he's like Alvin Kamara. Like that's how we've always felt about him when we first saw him. And Singleton is like, I don't even know who to compare him to. He's a pocket rocket.
Like the way he runs and the way he kind of brews through people. And I'm not saying he's at the same level of this. And who knows? Maybe he'll have like a bigger. I mean, he had an incredible, freshman year. Is kind of and the way he even the way he runs and that he has like no gloves or anything. He's like Nick Chubb to me.
Yeah.
But I'm not.
I was going to say Maurice Jones. I was
just Nick Chubb, but that's who he seems like.
I was going to say Maurice Jones-Drew. That was going to be my.
That's a deeper cut you're going.
Well, because he's not. He's 6 foot. Maurice Jones-Drew is much smaller, but he runs very low to the ground and everything like that too. So that's where I would lead. But yeah, I think Kaytron Allen. They're both electric and they've been good for 2 years now. So seeing them in their this is the year for James Franklin with this. It's the junior year of his best recruiting class he ever had. They have to come through.
So here's my question for you. Does Penn State have 2,000-yard rushers this year?
No.
No? Okay.
I think Allaire has a good year. I think they find something passing the ball with the new OC. And I don't think they need 2,000-yard rushers. I think they'll both be high, maybe Allen gets over 1,000 and then Singleton's
their freshman year, it was Singleton had just over 1,000 and Kaytron had, I believe, 800.
Yeah.
And then last year, neither of them got 1,000. It was 900 and 800.
Yeah, I think Kaytron gets to 1,000 and Singleton's at 800.
Okay.
Something like that. All right, our last game is not today. It's Sunday night. Sunday night football. Just getting you ready for some NFL football next Sunday night in Vegas. The USC Trojans and the LSU Tigers, 2 teams that don't play a lick of defense. At least didn't last year. This game could be electric. Miller Moss versus first. Brent Nussmeier. Not Brent. I don't know why I said Brent. I'm thinking of what's his name? Musburger when I said Nussmeier there. Miller Moss, a lot of hype right now with as the next Lincoln Riley quarterback. He blew it away in spring. That USC team, though, we just don't know about that defense. And it's like first year without Caleb Williams. Obviously, it's going to look a lot different. But can Miller Moss and those weapons? They have great receivers. They're going to be able to run the ball. And LSU losing the Heisman winner and losing 2 first-round wide receivers. We don't know who's going to be the star on that offense for them. What do you think is going to happen here in this matchup here in Vegas, which should be
bet the over?
What is let's check the over under here.
That's LSU. I know. I put the spread. I didn't put the over under. First of all, the Modelo Vegas Kickoff Classic.
Love it.
Which
64.5. What a number.
Whew. What is it?
64.5.
Whew.
Crazy.
It's funny having something called Classic when it's never happened before.
Yeah, that's right.
I do like how LSU the last few years has kind of carved out this spot though on this Sunday game because they did it back last 2 years previously against Florida State, and it's a little fun thing. This is every Sunday, this first college football Sunday, you get to look forward to LSU playing somebody, so it's kind of entertaining. But I don't know. I honestly I would go with and I was listing my teams, the SEC teams better than Texas A&M. I didn't even say LSU. I want to go with USC honestly, because I think with their returning talent that they have with Zachariah Branch and Deuce Robinson, who are both high caliber prospects that Lincoln Riley brought in, and who had decent seasons as wide receiver 3 and 4. Both had like 350 yards and a few touchdowns. And I know Zachariah Branch is known for he's one of the fastest players in college football. And Miller Moss, when they announced he was playing the Alamo Bowl last year, I was like, oh, this dude's going to be terrible. I bet on Louisville to win, and he just lit them up through 6 touchdowns. And I would just go with them just because the amount of returning talent that they have is just a little bit better. And a little bit, not much more proven, but a little bit more proven of a quarterback than what LSU has going right now.
Who would you rather take as a coach right now, Lincoln Riley or Brian Kelly?
I would take Lincoln Riley.
Yeah.
Because even if Lincoln Riley, guy who got teams to playoffs multiple times at Oklahoma, hasn't done it yet with USC, arguably maybe should have at USC his first year there when they were the 4 seed, and then losing the Pac-12 championship game knocked them out. It's like, why did they even play the Pac-12 championship game then if that's just going to disqualify them? Yeah. And I think he is just one of the best developers of quarterbacks in the last, in this century, honestly. Yeah. The amount of talent that he's been able to churn out quarterback. He has 3 different Heisman winners, 3 different first overall picks, and Jalen Hurts, who was a Heisman finalist and only lost to one of the best quarterback seasons we've ever seen, Joe Burrow, and who was a second-round pick, but obviously the way he's playing in the NFL probably should have been a first-round pick. So, if I was a player, I'd rather play for Lincoln Riley, and if I was a fan, I'd rather root for Lincoln Riley than I would for Brian Kelly.
Yeah, hard to argue, man. I think I'm in complete alignment with you, and I'm in alignment on this game. I don't think very highly of LSU this year. I think that they're, like you said, they're probably better than A&M, but they're in that mid-tier of SEC teams. They're not going to be able to match up with a Georgia, with a Texas, with a Bama, even an Ole Miss or Tennessee.
Maybe even in Oklahoma, if depending on how good Oklahoma's defense is. And
see what Jackson Arnold does too as a quarterback there. Yeah. Venables, that defense needs to get better in the SEC, but that we'll see what happens there. Yeah, I think LSU is like an 8-4, 9-3 candidate, and this USC team, if they get by this game, they have a tough Big Ten schedule, but this could be a team that is flirting around 9 or 10 games or 9 or 10 wins, and it's sneaking around the playoff discussion, especially if they could beat Notre Dame too, as we talked about. That'll be a huge game later on in the season if USC can get by this one. This will be a really fun game, and I'm really excited to see Miller Moss go at it. This is the schedule, though, for USC. They do get Michigan in a couple weeks, but we don't know what to make of Michigan at all.
At Michigan?
At Michigan. So that'll be tough.
You do kickoff, probably, I would bet.
It's I think it's CBS. It says 2:30 on my
CBS
thing
okay.
Here. They host Penn State. They host Nebraska and host Notre Dame to end the year, but they don't have to play Ohio State. Don't have to play Oregon. Don't have to play Washington. Those are some tougher games, but I could see them beating Penn State. We don't know what to make of Michigan this year at all yet. They're ranked in the top 10 because they won the Natty, but they're one of the lowest ranked defending national champions coming into a year, that could be a team that's not great.
Lowest ranked since 2011, I think we were talking about. Yeah, it's like 13 years. Yeah.
So it's a very they do have to play at Washington. I'm sorry, they do go to Washington, but I think it's a favorable schedule for USC if this team can get rolling. So I'm interested to see.
They don't play Oregon though.
No Oregon.
See, I would have thought with the new Big Ten scheduling that those teams would still play. USC would still play Oregon, Washington, UCLA every year, just because of like logistics wise, like traveling.
They play UCLA and Washington, but they don't.
Okay, so maybe it's 2 out of 3 every year then.
Yeah, something like that. So what's your score prediction here as we wrap up?
Let's go big. You know, what's gonna bend the over? Let's go like 38-35.
Okay, I was gonna say 38-31. So we're right on the same pace there, picking the Trojans. That'll do it for this preview show. We got a great slate of games coming.
First week underway.
Week 1 football is back. Thank you to our sponsor, Outlet Liquor. Make sure you go to George River Boulevard in Depew, your place to buy a case every college football Saturday this season. For Alex Micah, this is Jake Micah signing off. Enjoy the slate of games today, and we'll be back next week to preview week 2.